The pricing is a subject that seems to be cropping up an awful lot, and I think it crops up with every medium. It's really hard to kind of price your own work and to understand, where to start. And especially if you're starting out, it's really difficult, because where do you place yourself? You can have a look at other artists. You can sort of see what other people are pricing theirs at, and half of the time you feel guilty about even charging anything for a piece. It's it's a very, very difficult subject, but I think an incredibly important one, especially for those who are starting to do commission work, maybe want to create a living out of your art, that type of stuff. So I think it's a really, really important subject to talk about, and everybody has their own different ideas and methods and processes and all of that type of stuff. And of course, like everything, there are many, many roads to Rome. But I wanted to talk to you about my pricing structure and how I worked out what ultimately I would be charging, and hopefully it might help. I don't know, anybody, somebody, nobody. But I started out taking commission work in probably around June, July 2016. And I'd only been drawing, a couple of months, So of course, when people started asking me to do commissions, and this happens a lot, so my story is not unique in the slightest, this happens an awful lot. But when people start to ask about pricing, the first thing that I did was say, oh no, gosh, absolutely, I wouldn't dream of charging you, I'll do it for you for free, because of course it's my hobby, and I'm happy to do it for free, and that's kind of, I think a lot of people do that because they almost feel like they're not good enough to be, creating the commission or whatever, and that's a completely different conversation to have. That's all about mindset and self-belief and everything, and that kind of comes with practice. So I gave a few portraits away for free. And then I started to charge, and I started charging at £40. So I was giving away a piece, probably this sort of size, for £40. And I felt really happy about that. I got a full-time job. I was doing something I absolutely loved. And that was great. And then obviously, it kind of became clear that wasn't enough, and also once you start getting people inquiring about prices and everything, £40 is not a lot of money at all, and I know it's quite scary to sort of be thinking into the hundreds of pounds when you're first starting out, but even if you're charging £40, even if you're charging £10, you're still going to have people who ask what the price is and then tell you that they can get it done cheaper somewhere else, or their mate down the road can do it for free. So, it's the cheaper prices are actually, you get the more issues at the cheaper prices, if that makes sense. So you get more people knocking you back or telling you you're too expensive at the cheaper prices. So I made a decision to go, I didn't make a decision to go full-time until I think it was the October, but I increased my prices from 40 to 80 for an A4 and 110 for an A3. I felt that was kind of, an okay price. And I also looked at other artist prices and thought, what, I'm not as experienced as XYZ. I've got a similar style to ABC. I'm going to price mine sort of like, around the lower, the lower mark, but not too high, because I don't have the experience yet of these other artists who are charging more. And I think that's a reasonable thing to do. So someone who's been, structured their pricing and has increased their prices over the year, and they've developed their skills and everything, clearly I can't price mine the same as theirs. So, I need to take things into context and make sure that, my pricing is sort of similar to those who have a similar experience and style to me, I guess. So that's a good way of determining kind of where maybe you should be sitting, at the beginning. And then when I decided to go full time, that was the January 2017, I decided to go full time and take my commission work full time because my books were full. I mean, I'd got sort of like half a year booked in. So I knew the demand was there. But then I had to be very, very careful about my pricing structure because if I was leaving my full-time job, I needed to make sure that I could make enough money to be able to support my children, to pay my mortgage, etc., etc. So that's when I kind of looked at my pricing again and worked out how much I needed to be charging to be able to, you know, make a reasonable living from it. Obviously, I was married at the time, so there were two incomes, so it wasn't too it wasn't too bad. And what I did was, and there are all sorts of different ways you can work out your pricing. You can work out, you know, per square inch, you know, the cost of your materials, you know, plus a you know, a minimum hourly rate, that type of stuff. Well, for me, it was more about how much do I need to earn each month to be able to pay my mortgage. And I figured out that I needed to create 8 or 9 portraits a month, which was doable because I was going to be doing it full time and I do work long hours, so that it was doable. And I needed to be charging, I think I started at £200, so that was quite a big leap from 110 to 200, but that's what I did. I set up my business, and mine is a limited company, and that is what I've started to charge my commissions out at. My smallest piece, I think it was an 11 by 15 or something like that, that's what I charged out at £200. And it didn't stop people from booking. In fact, I think the more I've raised my prices, the busier I've got, which sounds ludicrous, but your audience changes. You know, you go from people who, you know, really can't afford £40 to somebody who, you know, wouldn't dream of spending, you know, £200 on a painting. They would spend £2,000 on a painting. So, you know, your audience is changing all of the time. So that's where I started. And starting a business, I also invested in all sorts of development things. And one of the things that I decided I was going to invest in was one of, and if you're a coloured pencil artist, you'll know all about her, one of Anne Kullberg's webinar series. And the particular one that I went on, or, you know, online, was one called Shine. And it's basically, I mean, Anne Kullberg is an amazing businesswoman. She owns Colour magazine. She's a portrait artist. She's an incredible woman. She basically, in her Shine series, which is still going, by the way, so if you can get onto it, I would highly recommend you do. And I'll put a link in the description as well. But she basically talked through how she set up her commission business, and it was mostly around sort of pricing and all of that type of stuff. And there were things in there that kind of really related to me, and then there were things in there that I was like, I'm not sure that's going to be a particular help for me. But, you know, like with everything, you know, you take some things away and not others. But the majority of I would highly recommend you get a place on it. It's not expensive, and it's so worth it. So she explained the pricing structure as ensuring that you regularly up your prices. If you're in demand, then your prices need to keep going up, because if you're in demand, you're in demand, you know. And what she suggested was that each time you had 2 months of full commissions in your books. Now, my full 2 months was 9 commissions a month. Your full 2 months might be 1 commission a month, or it might be 1 commission every 6 months. You know, everybody's full books is slightly different. And she recommended that, you know, you up your your prices every time you had 2 months full books. And that's what I started to do. So each time I had 2 months full books, I would up my prices by, I don't know, 20%, something like that. The other thing that I did was I ended up giving myself a goal price. So I decided that, do you know what, it would be absolutely amazing if my prices could be 500 for an 11 by 15. Actually, I changed it to a 10 by 12, but that's what I wanted. £500 for one of my smallest portraits. And that's what I did. Every 2 months, I increased my prices. How I price things, I keep my prices on my website, so I don't they're on Facebook, but nobody can see them anyway. Even if you're completely, your prices are completely visible, people still will ask what your prices are. So mine are on my website, and I can keep them updated on there. They just rose steadily until I hit my goal price in 2000. I think I hit my goal price in 2019 of £500, and then we've kind of gone past that now. But it means that my portraits now are making a realistic price for the amount of effort that I put into them. And one of the things that people really, really, really worry about when they're increasing their prices is that they'll stop getting commissions. I'm gonna market myself out of or price myself out of the market. They're going to be too expensive. People won't want them. Actually, it's the complete opposite of that. And I found as soon as I sort of hit the £400 mark, I started to get an awful lot of inquiries, and people wouldn't buy the smallest piece that I offered. They'd go one up because it was like, I don't know, £100 more or something. So if you're going to be paying £500, you pay £600 and get something bigger. So it's a lot of it is about psychology of people. A lot of it is about, targeting the audience, the right audience for you, and your audience is one who has got a disposable income and who wouldn't possibly ever dream of buying something for £50 because it would be deemed as, not good enough quality. Even if it was the most amazing portrait, they would choose one that is more expensive, and that's just normal human behaviour. So that's what I did, and what ended up happening was that I became really, really, really busy. And I had nearly 2 years booked into my diary. Now that scared me quite a lot because I was keeping people's money at that point. I'd got deposits, booking fees, and that wasn't something I was comfortable with. I mean, I'm not very comfortable about taking any money at all. So to have people's money for sort of over a year was something that I really wasn't comfortable about. And that's when I decided to close my commission books. And I thought, do you know what, I'll just close them for a while. I'd started teaching at that point, so, I was getting sort of a little bit more of an income coming through. So I wasn't relying on deposits. And I understand that some people do rely on deposits, and that's completely understandable. But I wasn't relying on the deposits. I had my workshops, coming through, and I'd started my Patreon teaching channel. So I'd got sort of like a little bit of supplementary income coming in. So that was okay. But what happened was I closed my commission books, and I decided I would open a wait list. So, anybody who wanted to wait could go on to subscribe to the list, and then once I opened the books again, then they could book on. They would be first to know because I could send them an email via the mailing list, and they would be the first to know. So that worked far, far better than I'd just closed them because I was feeling uncomfortable. But then what happened was I got hundreds and hundreds of people then joined my waiting list, which is amazing. But then again, it was like, oh my goodness. So then every time I opened, so I've reopened my commission books twice. and then completely sold. I sold a year out in a day. And bearing in mind, I'm not doing 9 portraits a month now. I'm doing maybe 2 or 3. But I was booking a year in advance in just a day, which it sounds mad. And it's not. I'm not being big-headed here. It's just how it works. People have been waiting and waiting, and then they got a chance to book something in, and because of the audience that I was now sort of have got my work in front of, it wasn't a case of, oh yes, I'll have a portrait, thank you. It was a case of, well, do you know what? I don't want to wait for very long, so I'm going to book 3 portraits in, and that's kind of how it works, and it's mad. It is bonkers, but kind of, and I didn't have an agenda. It wasn't something that I'd planned to happen, but it kind of happened, and obviously it was brilliant, because now when I open my commission books, I have a list of nearly 500 people who I email, and that's it. Next year booked in. I can plan. If I wanted to, I could plan 2 years in ahead, which I don't want to, because that stresses me out. But that's kind of how it works for me now, and that's kind of the model that I'm using now. Is that sort of opening my commission books probably on a 6-month basis, and then booking in and getting the next year sort of planned and sorted. Now, how I've managed to market my work and everything, that's a different story. And I've kind of alluded to that in some, well, not alluded to that. I give everything away for free, so if you contact me, I'll tell you. But I tend to do a lot of these little videos for my patrons and give them, anything anybody wants to know, I will tell them. But the pricing bit, for me, I think that it's very easy to say don't undersell yourself, but then you are then going to be feeling really, really quite awkward, pricing your work higher, it's sort of in the hundreds. It's going to feel really stressy. The other thing as well is that a lot of people feel that, quite a few people get a little bit annoyed with artists who price their work really low, because they feel that, well, I'm pricing mine at 200, you're pricing yours at 40, so you're going to take all of the work. But it's not how it works, because somebody who's going to be buying a £300 portrait, just like I said before, just would not even contemplate buying a £40 one. So the only people that the artists who are charging £40, the only people they're hurting are themselves. But actually, it's okay to charge £40 at the beginning. It's okay to charge a lower amount at the beginning, because you're just starting out, you're just gaining the experience, you're kind of, developing your own audience. So, start with something you feel comfortable with, but continue to increase your prices so that you end up with a price that is going to help you make a living from your art. And I still see a lot of artists who are well established and who are really not charging a huge amount for their portraits, and they could be charging so much more. But I know that a lot of us feel a little bit uncomfortable doing that. But I mean, for me, at the end of the day, I had to pay my mortgage. I became a single mum 6 months after I started my business, which was, that was good timing. But it wasn't my choice, I have to say, that I became a single mum, but there we go. And you some things are more important than feeling awkward about not asking for enough money. And for me, the important thing was to keep a roof over my children's head, and that's always been the most important thing. So, so I would highly recommend that you look at Anne Kullberg's Shine series. She's got a huge amount of knowledge in the commission business, and she makes a massive amount of sense. So I definitely recommend having a look at that, and I would really recommend you have a good good solid look at your pricing structure as it is at the moment. If you're getting regular commissions in, fantastic. Look at a goal price that you can aim towards and slowly start to increase your prices. And I would be doing it every couple of months. If you're serious about making a living from your art, then having a good pricing structure is key. So, I would definitely have a look at your pricing structure and start to put some changes into place. And don't be scared. I know it's easy for me to say don't be scared, but have a little faith in yourself. Don't price yourself too low, and have a really good goal price in mind that you can aim towards, and if you are getting masses of commissions and you are feeling a little bit uncomfortable about taking on sort of more than a year's worth, then consider closing your books and starting a waitlist. And it's so easy to set up something like MailChimp, something like that, and it's free. As long as you haven't got too many campaigns running, it's free. And you can you can get MailChimp to organise all of your lists of people who are waiting, and then as soon as you're ready to open your books again, you can send out your email to everybody, and hopefully what will happen is you'll book your diary in for a good few months in the future. So it's all good, but you do have to be a little bit brave. But that's kind of what I did, and I probably waffled on for a load of like I usually do. But I think it's important to know your worth and make sure that you have a plan in place to increase your prices, so that you ultimately are charging a reasonable amount for the quality of work that you're producing and the amount of work that goes into it.